This is an art collage novel video. I made this series so you guys can experience the story faster. The video will focus on the character's psychology, the images are for illustration purposes only. The people from the Zhu clan and Zhang Sun clan looked at each other. No one was willing to make a move. Xiahou Jian was just a clown in their eyes, and now he wanted to command them. Of course, they were unwilling, but the token of the Blood God Palace was in his hands, so they did not dare to disobey. They all stood there with cold gazes, and many people even turned their heads away without saying a word. "You've already attacked House Xiahou today," Xiahou Jian sneered. "Do you think they'll let you go if you don't? There are at least 100 people lying in ambush here. If you don't make a move, you'll die." Everyone frowned, and sure enough, a large number of cultivators rushed out from all directions, each one of them attacking the two families. The two families felt bitter and helpless. Since the Blood God Palace had already intervened, they would not be able to gain anything from this trip. They had long wanted to retreat under such circumstances. Under the siege of the Xiahous, they could only fight, but their fighting spirit was completely gone. The courtyard was soon in chaos. The two families had sent their elites, and their combined strength was greater than the Xiahous. However, at this time, neither of them was willing to be the mantis and let the Oriole, Blood God Palace, gain the upper hand. They only dealt with the situation briefly. Although the battle was chaotic, it was not intense. Xiahou Ye's attention was focused on the fight between Xiahou Chang and the two experts from the Blood God Palace. The three of them were all 9-star martial supremes. Under the Blood God Palace's strange blood sacrifice technique, Xiahou Chang was struggling to hold on, but he was still being pushed back and gradually falling into a disadvantageous position. Anyone below the level of a 9-stars martial supreme would have been annihilated on the spot if they were to get involved in a battle of this level. Xiahou Yi became anxious as he watched and shouted, "Big brother, stop fighting. Just give them the jade tablet." Xiahou Chang's figure flickered in the blood-red light. "Second brother, father has always said that I'm naive, but you're the naive one now. Even if we hand over the jade tablet, will they let us go?" "You're quite enlightened. Disobeying the Blood God Palace's order and bringing out your own treasures means death." One of the Blood God Palace's men grinned hideously. The bloodletting spiky blade in his hand suddenly split into two, breaking through Xiahou Chang's defense while he was caught off guard. Another spiky blade even stabbed into his shoulder. Xiahou Chang suddenly felt a sharp pain in his shoulder. Furious, he blocked the blade from entering his body. Instead, he stepped forward and smacked the man's forehead with his palm. Blood gushed out of his shoulder. His opponent was shocked. He didn't expect Xiahou Chang to be so fierce. Unable to dodge in time, he gritted his teeth and exploded into a bloody mist, causing his opponent's palm to miss. Xiahou Chang's brows furrowed. At this moment, another person flew up to attack him. He retreated in a hurry and pulled out the blood blade on his shoulder at the same time. Immediately, a large piece of flesh was cut off, revealing the white bones. What made him even angrier was that the large piece of flesh had turned black and was actually poisonous. The person who had turned into blood mist turned around and condensed back into a human form. However, his vitality was greatly damaged. He retreated to the side with a pale face and watched coldly. The other man sneered. Seeing that Xiahou Chang had been poisoned, he didn't rush to attack. Instead, he waited for the poison to take effect. Xiahou Yi was greatly saddened by this. He shouted, "What will it take for you to let House Xiahou go? I'll give you the jade tablet and my life, isn't that enough?" "Of course not." The man from the Blood God Palace sneered. "Those who disobey the Blood God token must be prepared to be removed from the continent." Xiahou Yi was filled with grief and indignation. He drew his sword and charged forward. The sword's radiance swept across the area. However, he was no match for the Blood God Palace's people. The person watching the battle sneered and moved his body. He grabbed the sword with his bare hands and broke it with a bang. A corrosive aura and the smell of blood came from the cut. The poison on this person was so strong. Xiahou Yi was stunned for a moment before he saw a pair of blood-red hands grab him. Second brother. Xiahou Cheng cried out in alarm. He hurriedly shook off the people around him and flew over to rescue him. The Blood God Palace disciple sneered and changed his direction immediately. It was a feint to the east and a strike to the west. Xiahou Cheng was taken aback. Just as the bloody palm was about to land, the aura of the person behind him rose sharply, and he attacked with the same fierce move. Xiahou Cheng's origin power was already exhausted from the two attacks. Panicking, he hurriedly raised his defense to the maximum. However, his defense was broken in an instant, and two overbearing forces rushed into his body, shattering all his meridians. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. Phew, the troublesome thing has finally been resolved. One of them reached out, and a giant bloody hand appeared in the air. It grabbed the upper half of Xiahou Cheng's body, who had completely lost his combat power. He looked around and said coldly, "Everyone, stop." All the Xiahous stopped in shock and didn't dare move. Father, you won't have a good ending if you go against the Blood God Palace. Xiahou Jian laughed as he walked up. Father, please hand over the restriction technique of this treasury. Xiahou Cheng opened his eyes weakly. Bastard. I really hate that I didn't shoot you into the wall for a moment of pleasure. Old thing, you're really stubborn. The Blood God Palace's blood-red hand grabbed at Xiahou Cheng, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood mixed with a large amount of crushed internal organs. His aura instantly weakened. Don't kill him. If he's dead, only the old master will know about the restriction technique. Xiahou Jian suddenly exclaimed. His eyes revealed a trace of ruthlessness as he said coldly, if you don't treat me as your son, Xiahou Cheng, I won't treat you as my father either. I know you're a great hero, but aren't the Xiahous all heroes like you? Almost all of House Xiahou's elites are gathered here. You don't want to see them die one by one in front of you, do you? And your second brother, Xiahou Yi, do you not want him to live? Don't even think about using me to threaten Big Brother. Indignant, Xiahou Yi raised his broken sword to commit suicide. The life and death of an ant is not up to you. The man from the Blood God Palace flicked his finger and knocked the broken sword out of his hand. Then, a huge hand appeared and grabbed Xiahou Yi in the air. All right, I'll tell you. He knew that he couldn't escape today. How could he let his family's elites and brothers die like this? He had to hand over the restriction method. After the people of Blood God Palace memorized it, they began to perform spiritual arts one after another. The restrictions in front of the vault cracked like a mirror and were all unlocked. You're indeed tactful. Wait till we get our hands on the 9th tier profound armament, then we'll properly discuss how to deal with you ants. The people of Blood God Palace laughed and kicked open the door of the vault. Just as they were overjoyed, an aura suddenly came out from inside. It was as vast as the sea, and there was a flash of strange light. That strange feeling was the power of domain. What's going on? This is Tao Wu's promotion to a revered martial artist? Everyone was shocked and rushed in. The scene in front of them stunned everyone. Then, shock and anger appeared on the faces of the two men from Blood God Palace. One of them said angrily, "What's going on?" The entire vault was empty. There was not a single metastone in sight. There was only a young man sitting cross-legged in the vault. He exuded the aura of the 8 Desolation realm, indicating that he had just advanced to the Martial Honor realm. Yunxiao opened his eyes and turned a blind eye to everyone. He smiled and said to himself, I've finally recovered my 8 Desolation realm cultivation. I can feel some power now. Xiahou Jian was also confused. He said angrily, Who are you? Why are you here? Would you believe me if I said I don't know why I'm here? Yunxiao laughed. Xiahou Jian's face was as dark as water. He said coldly, as expected, You're not honest. It seems that I have to make you honest. Where are the treasures in the treasury? Yunxiao touched the back of his head and said in embarrassment, Although the grade of the treasures here are not high, you can't be so ungrateful and throw them everywhere. I was kind enough to help you pick them up. You coward. Thieves, how dare you steal from the Xiahus? You deserve to die. Milords, Xiahou Jian hurriedly said that 9th tier profound armament must have been stolen by this kid. Yunxiao's aura was that of a martial supreme of the 8 Desolation realm, which was far above his, so he did not dare to make a move. Oh. Your vault is so well constructed and has extraordinary restrictions. How did he get in? A man from the Blood God Palace threw Xiahou Chang and Xiahou Yi away. They fell to the ground and vomited blood. Xiahou Yi ran forward to treat Xiahou Chang's injuries in grief. He couldn't help but cry. Xiahou Chang looked at Yunxiao in horror, despite his severe injuries. He could not figure out how this man had come in. Yunxiao smiled wryly. In this day and age, people will think you're lying when they tell the truth. When you tell a lie, people will think you're joking. Only when you tell a joke will people think you're telling the truth. Kid, you're quite humorous, but I hate cunning and dishonest people, a person from the Blood God Palace said coldly. He raised his hand and made a grabbing motion in the air. Just like before, a big blood-red hand appeared in the air, then suddenly grabbed Yunxiao's upper body and lifted him into the air. Yunxiao did not resist at all, but his pupils constricted as he said in surprise, "This cultivation technique is so mysterious. Are you guys from the Blood God Palace? This is the Blood God Palace?" Xiahou Jian laughed coldly. You've only just recognized us. Don't you think it's a little too late? Yunxiao gave an irrelevant answer, so, this is the Eastern region? The Blood God Palace should be considered a top-ranked sect, right? Why is there only such a small amount of things in the treasury? It seems to be very poor. Damn it! Xiahou Jian roared. He's taken all of House Xiahou's treasures, yet he still thinks it's too shabby. Milords, let's skin him and interrogate him. He was not angry because Yunxiao had taken everything, but because he had said that his family was poor. The Xiahou family was one of the 3 great families of Windfall City, and he was embarrassed and angry at being called a house with nothing but 4 walls. A man from the Blood God Palace grinned hideously as he opened his mouth and stuck out his blood-red tongue. It stretched out infinitely and reached directly in front of Yunxiao's face. This pretty boy looks like he's going to taste good. It's a pity to peel him off. Why don't you add some ingredients and let me nourish him? Everyone felt their hair stand on end when they saw this. They thought that the Blood God Palace was indeed terrifying and strange. These cultivation techniques had made people look neither human nor ghost. As you like, my lord. Why don't I get someone to get some soy sauce from the kitchen? Xiahou Jian also laughed heartily. Yunxiao frowned, and his eyes gradually turned frosty as he said coldly, "It's too troublesome to be a bystander. I'll add something else for you." At this moment, his entire body was being held by that huge hand. The heavenly eye on his forehead opened, and a terrifying bolt of lightning shot out. It was the lightning of tribulation that he had absorbed and refined. Pa. A. Without any warning, the lightning struck the long tongue directly and broke it. A large amount of blood mist spurted out. The man from Blood God Palace opened his mouth wide and roared in pain. The long tongue fell to the ground and turned into a pool of blood. A. You should die. The man with the broken tongue had blood all over his mouth. He suddenly reached out with his bloody palm, trying to crush Yunxiao into powder. His blood essence was not only highly toxic, but it also contained a strong corrosive power. With the infusion of his vital qi, an ordinary martial supreme would have long turned into pus and blood. What? His eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. No matter how hard he tried, the young man completely ignored the bloody shadows that exploded around Yunxiao. His face was still cold and indifferent as he looked at Yunxiao with ridicule, as if he was watching a show. Who are you? The people from Blood God Palace suddenly realized that something was wrong. The two of them looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. However, they did not panic. As long as the two of them joined forces, it would be difficult for anyone below the Martial Supreme Realm to find an opponent. Let's join forces and kill them quickly. The man with the broken tongue said in a deep voice. His left hand formed a seal and he shouted, "Blood explosion." The huge bloody hand suddenly shrank and suppressed, constantly absorbing the spiritual chi between heaven and earth, and then suddenly exploded. He did not stop after that. Instead, he took out the bloodletting spike and turned into a bloody shadow as he rushed forward. The other person from the Blood God Palace did not hesitate either. His shadow flickered as he followed closely behind. Yunxiao's body glowed with a golden light. It was the inextinguishable golden body, and it was even flickering with the bright moon divine light. Under the shine of Yunxiang's 9-yang divine body, the two physiques actually combined together, forming the abnormal state of golden skin and white light. After the bloody hand exploded, it couldn't hurt him at all. He stared coldly at the two bloody shadows, and his body gradually turned into lightning, as if the god of thunder had descended to the world. A palm that was constantly growing in size slapped down from the sky, and wherever the palm power passed, there was a crackling electric arc. What's this, Kasaya? Everyone was shocked. The might of the lightning struck fear into their hearts like the might of the heavens. They shuddered. The two men from Blood God Palace were also greatly shocked. The blood light directly manifested into human figures. The power of their domain was also expanded to the maximum in order to defend against the thunderous palm. It's no use. Let the lightning wash your filthy bodies. Yunxiao said coldly. The lightning palm fell and instantly devoured two people from the Blood God Palace. Boom. A huge thunderbolt exploded, and the Xiaohou family's impregnable vault was instantly blown to smithereens, revealing a clear sky. Many of the others were also injured by the thunderbolt. They looked at the cold young man in the sky in horror. They did not know where such a fiend had come from, and his attacks were so fierce. Pfft. The two men from the Blood God Palace fell to the ground with severe injuries. They kept vomiting blood. The two of them were also extremely shocked. They were both 9-stars martial supremes. It was impossible to defeat them without the strength of a peak martial supreme. Even a peak martial venerable wouldn't be able to win so easily with one strike. Does this ingredient suit your taste? Yunxiao said with no expression on his face. His indifferent look shocked the two men. One of them struggled and said, "We're from the Blood God Palace. If you really dare to attack us, you'll have to consider it carefully. If you hand over the 9th tier profound armament now and leave, we can treat it as if nothing had happened." Yunxiao frowned and said coldly, "Pretend that nothing happened? Then wouldn't I have beaten you up for nothing? You mean you want me to beat you up again before you can treat it as if something happened, right?" No, stop. The man was shocked and quickly said, "I mean, as long as you can't." Yunxiao was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. The thunder of heavenly tribulation shot out from between his brows and blasted directly into the man's body, blowing him into pieces on the spot. I hate talking to stupid people. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and shivered. They could not accept the fact that this man had really killed the people of the Blood God Palace. He had done it so casually and unscrupulously. What do you want to do? We have no grudges against each other. The other person from the Blood God Palace was also afraid. He was so scared that his entire body trembled. He was used to being arrogant, and it was difficult for him to accept such a reversal of roles. No grudges? Originally, I was, but from the moment you attacked me, there was no longer any enmity between us. Yunxiao held up a finger and shook it as he said, "Let me ask you, does your Blood God Palace have a piece of the living earth?" The disciple's expression changed drastically as he exclaimed, Jianjia, you actually want that thing? So, you have one? Yunxiao narrowed his eyes and smiled. The Blood God Palace disciple suddenly burst out laughing. Ha, you actually want the breathing earth? Let me tell you, the Blood God Palace does have a piece, but can you get it? Even the Red Moon City has sent people to ask for it, but the Palace Master has never given it to them. Who do you think you are to have such an improper thought? This is so funny. What a joke. Yunxiao said coldly. Then go to hell. Another bolt of lightning shot out from between his eyebrows. With a boom, the other blood god palace disciple was blown to pieces. He was not a person who would kill innocent people. However, the blood god palace was not a good place. The people inside were all filled with evil energy. They were all executioners who had killed people like flies. It did not matter if they died. At this moment, everyone was completely stunned. No one dared to say a word. Cold sweat trickled down their cheeks. To kill a 9-stars martial supreme in an instant, the cultivation of this man in front of them was unfathomable. Even if he was not a martial supreme, he was almost there. In fact, Yunxiao's strength was not as terrifying as they had thought. It was just that the two men from the Blood God Palace had consumed a lot of energy after the battle with Xiahou Cheng, and the power of thunder Yunxiao had cast was the nemesis of one of the evil arts in the world, which doubled its power. It was the best way to deal with cultivation techniques like blood sacrifice. You, don't come over, come over. Xiahou Jian was so scared that he couldn't even stand straight. His entire body was trembling. He suddenly took out the blood god token and held it in his trembling hand. This is the real blood god token. You can take a closer look. It's not fake. It's the real blood god token. In his mind, no one would dare to kill the people of the blood god palace. Even though the truth was right in front of him, he still found it hard to accept, thinking that Yunxiao did not believe their identities. Yes, I know. Yunxiao took the token, crushed it into a piece of scrap iron, and threw it out like garbage. I won't kill you. Don't worry. I'm going to the Blood God Palace. Just lead the way. He grabbed Xiahou Jian and turned into a beam of light, disappearing from the house. Everyone looked at each other. If they hadn't seen half of the Xiahous being reduced to ruins by the lightning, they would have found it hard to believe. The people of the Zhu and Zhang Sun families did not dare to stay any longer. They quickly flew in the direction of their families. Xiahou Cheng forced himself to his feet. Second brother, quickly pack up and prepare everything. We'll leave immediately after the old master returns. Windfall City is no longer a place we can stay in. We must find another place to take root. Xiahou Yi immediately reacted. The Blood God Palace would never let them go after this incident. It was just a huge family business with over 10,000 people. They couldn't just leave as they pleased. However, they couldn't care about that now. They could only escape in batches. He looked at the empty vault that no longer existed, and his heart twitched. How many years of savings were gone just like that? He was 100% sure that Yunxiao had emptied the vault, but he did not have the courage and strength to ask for it from him. He could not even figure out how Yunxiao had appeared in the vault. And how was that 9th-tier jade tablet taken away? That was a treasure that even the Lord Master was unable to take away. Could it be that his cultivation level was higher than the Lord Master's? When he thought of Yunxiao's question before he left, he broke out in a cold sweat. Did that kid really go to the Blood God Palace to ask for the breathing earth? What kind of person was he? Did he really not know how the word death was written? Xiahou Ye's mind was in a mess. His greed had brought him such a disaster. He didn't have the time to think about it. He was already very lucky to be able to keep his life and the bloodline of the Xiahou family. He left Xiahou Cheng to heal himself and hurriedly gathered and dealt with family matters. Fortunately, he was also good at management, and he quickly handled it in an orderly manner. When Xiahou Yuanming returned, he reported the situation. The next day, the Xiahou family, which had been very popular in Windfall City for a time, sold all of their properties to Myriad Treasure Store at an extremely low price. In just 3 days, the house was empty.